You're going through your bank statement. Tuesday night, laptop open on the kitchen table, and you're trying to figure out where the month went. You made $3,680. After rent, car payments, student loans, the big stuff. You should have had about $900 left. Decent margin, but you've got $240 in your checking account, and payday isn't for another week. So you're scrolling through the transactions, looking for the big expense, the thing that explains why you're at $240 instead of $900. But there's no big expense. There's no $660 purchase you forgot about. There's just everything. $12 here, $45 there, $8, $23, $67, $15, hundreds of small transactions that individually made sense, but collectively consumed $660 that should have been margin. And you're thinking, I'm not spending recklessly, I'm not buying anything crazy, I'm just living, getting coffee sometimes, ordering dinner when I'm tired, buying stuff I need. Normal life expenses. But normal life expenses just cost you $660 and you didn't even notice it happening. It just leaked out, $10 and $20 at a time until the month was gone. My name's Peter, and if you've ever looked at your bank account and wondered where all the money went, even though you didn't buy anything major, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because there's a specific spending pattern that's draining about $273 monthly from middle-class budgets, and it's completely invisible until you actually track it. So let's start with what that $273 monthly leak actually looks like when you break it down category by category. You're making $61,000 a year. After taxes, $3,800 take-home monthly. Your fixed expenses are about $2,900. Rent, car, insurance, loans, utilities, groceries. You should have $900 discretionary. That's what the math says. But here's what actually happens. Let's track 1 month. Coffee and drinks. You don't go to Starbucks every day, but you go sometimes, maybe 3 times a week. $6 per visit. That's $72 monthly. Not outrageous, reasonable. Lunch at work. You bring lunch most days, but sometimes you forget. Sometimes you're tired. Sometimes everyone else is going out. You buy lunch maybe twice a week. $14 per time. That's $112 monthly. Dinner delivery. You're not ordering every night, but you're tired after work. You order maybe once a week. $35 with tip and fees. That's $140 monthly. Streaming services. Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime, maybe one more. $55 monthly total. Impulse purchases online. You're scrolling, you see something, it's $25. Not expensive. You buy it. This happens maybe 4 times a month. Small stuff. Useful stuff. $100 monthly. Convenience store runs. Gas station coffee, energy drinks, snacks while you're out. $8 here, $12 there, maybe $65 monthly. Apps and subscriptions. Cloud storage, a productivity app, maybe a game. $28 monthly. Weekend expenses. You go out with friends. Not expensive bars, just normal stuff. Maybe $80 monthly. Random household items. You need things. Toiletries, cleaning supplies, random replacement items. You get them at Target or Amazon. $95 monthly. Add it up, $747 monthly. None of it felt excessive when it happened. None of it was a splurge. It was just normal spending. Coffee when you wanted it. Lunch when you needed it. Stuff when you thought you needed stuff. But $747 consumed 83% of your $900 discretionary. You've got $153 left for savings, emergencies, anything unexpected. And that's if nothing actually unexpected happens. Most people think they overspend on big purchases, the vacation they couldn't afford, the furniture they financed, the expensive night out, and those things matter, but they're not the main drain. The main drain is the $273 monthly that disappears into tiny transactions that don't register as spending. It's death by $1,008 purchases. Most people think the solution is to budget better or track everything or cut out coffee. And sure, tracking helps, but that's not the core issue. The core issue is that modern spending is invisible. You don't hand over cash, you tap a card. The money disappears digitally, and your brain doesn't register the accumulation. When you handed over $35 in cash for dinner, you felt it. You saw your wallet get thinner. Your brain encoded that as a cost. Now you tap a card. The dinner still costs $35, but you don't feel it. You just eat. The payment is abstracted, and abstracted payments don't trigger the same psychological resistance that cash did. So you spend $12 on coffee without thinking. You spend $35 on dinner without hesitation. Each individual transaction feels small, manageable, not worth thinking about. But collectively, over a month, those frictionless small transactions add up to $747. And you never felt it happening because each individual transaction was too small to trigger financial awareness. This is called the small purchase invisibility effect, and it's massively profitable for businesses because when spending feels frictionless, people spend more, way more. Coffee shops know this. That's why they push mobile ordering and card payments. They know that when paying is effortless, you'll come more often and add extras. That $4 coffee becomes $6 with a pastry because the payment is one tap either way. Delivery apps know this. That's why they save your payment info and make ordering 2 taps. They know that friction kills orders. Frictionless spending maximizes them. Every modern payment system is designed to remove psychological barriers to spending. One-click buying, saved payment methods, auto pay, buy now, pay later. It's all about making spending feel like nothing, and it works. Studies show people spend 20 to 30% more when using cards versus cash, not because they have more money, because the psychological cost of spending feels lower. There's a specific mechanism that makes this particularly insidious. It's called mental accounting, and it works like this. You have categories in your head for different types of money. Money in savings feels real and important. Money in checking feels real but usable. Money in your wallet feels very real. You can see it. But money that exists only as a number on an app, that feels abstract, theoretical, not quite real. So when you're at a coffee shop and you tap your phone to pay $6, your brain doesn't process that the same way it would if you handed over a $10 bill and got $4 back. The digital transaction feels less concrete, less significant, and that lack of concreteness means you don't fully register the cost. You know intellectually that you spent $6, but you don't feel it the way you used to feel handing over cash. And this happens dozens of times a month. Tap, tap, tap. Each time, $8, $12, $35. Each time, your brain barely registers it as a real expense. And at the end of the month, you've spent $747 on things you don't really remember buying. Let's look at what this invisible spending actually costs over time when you let it run unchecked. $273 monthly in small, invisible purchases you could have avoided. That's $3,276 annually. Over 5 years, $16,380. Over 10 years, $32,760. Over 20 years, $65,520. That's just the direct cost. But here's the opportunity cost. If you had invested that $273 monthly at 7% returns, over 5 years, about $19,600. Over 10 years, about $47,000. Over 20 years, about $141,000. The cost of invisible spending isn't just the $65,520 you spent, it's the $141,000 you could have had if you'd invested that money instead. And this isn't hypothetical splurges. This is coffee, lunches, small purchases, convenience spending, stuff that felt completely reasonable at the time. But reasonable small purchases cost you $141,000 in potential wealth over 20 years. That's a house down payment. That's early retirement. That's financial security. And you traded it for coffee and takeout you don't even remember. You're at the grocery store, Sunday afternoon. You need actual groceries. You've got a list. Milk, eggs, vegetables, basics. Should be about $80. But you're walking through the aisles and you see things. That snack you like, that's $7. Some pre-made meals for when you're tired, $24. A new type of coffee to try, $12. Some dessert, $8. Random stuff that seems useful, $18. You get to checkout, $149. You look at the receipt, you got everything on your list, that was $82. The rest, $67, was stuff you didn't plan to buy, stuff you just saw and bought. And that tightness in your chest, it's not about the $67 exactly, it's about the pattern. You did this last week too, and the week before. You always go in with a plan for $80 and come out having spent $140+. The extra $60 to $70 per shopping trip adds up to $260 monthly. Combined with all the other small invisible purchases, you're bleeding money you can't afford to lose. And it happens so gradually you don't even notice until the month is gone. So here's how people who actually maintain financial discipline handle invisible spending. They don't try to track every purchase. They don't try to eliminate all small expenses. That's exhausting and unsustainable. Instead, they create friction. Intentional friction that makes spending just hard enough that their brain registers it. Some use cash for discretionary spending. They take out $400 at the start of the month. That's their budget for coffee, meals out, small purchases, everything. When it's gone, it's gone. And because they're handing over physical bills, each transaction registers psychologically. Others remove saved payment info from apps and websites, so every purchase requires getting up, finding their wallet, entering card details. That 30 seconds of friction is enough to make them ask, do I actually need this? Most impulse purchases die in those 30 seconds. Others implement a 24-hour rule for anything over $20. They can't buy it immediately. They have to wait until tomorrow. If they still want it tomorrow, fine. But most of the time, by tomorrow, they've forgotten about it or realized they don't need it. And here's what happens when they do this. Their invisible spending drops from $747 monthly to maybe $280. Still some coffee, still some convenience, still some small purchases, but way less, because friction made them conscious of each decision. And that $467 monthly difference, after 10 years, that's $79,000 in additional net worth. Same income, same life, just less invisible bleeding. Now, let me be very clear about something. Not all small purchases are bad. Coffee isn't evil, takeout isn't a sin, sometimes convenience is worth paying for. But most people aren't making conscious decisions about these things. They're just defaulting to yes because it's easy, and easy default yes spending is expensive. The goal isn't to never buy coffee, the goal is to make buying coffee an actual decision instead of a mindless default. To add just enough friction that you ask yourself, do I actually want this, or am I just buying it because it's there? So here's the thing about the $273 monthly leak. It's not one big hole you can plug. It's dozens of tiny holes that are collectively draining your finances while remaining individually invisible. You can't fix it by eliminating one category. Coffee alone isn't the problem. Lunch alone isn't the problem. Delivery alone isn't the problem. It's all of it combined. It's the entire ecosystem of small purchases that modern payments enable, and the only way to fix it is to reintroduce friction. Make spending just hard enough that you notice it happening. Force your brain to register each purchase as an actual cost instead of an invisible tap. Cash for discretionary spending, removed saved payments, 24-hour delays, whatever friction works for you. But without friction, the invisible spending continues, and $273 monthly continues to disappear, and over 20 years, $141,000 in potential wealth evaporates into coffee and takeout you don't even remember. You can live with frictionless spending and invisible drains, or you can introduce friction and force consciousness. Most people choose frictionless convenience. The ones who build wealth choose conscious spending. If you want to see exactly how the banks have engineered a completely different trap, and how they designed your paycheck to disappear by Thursday before you even buy a single coffee, click the video on your screen right now. Stop bleeding money and start building your freedom. I'll see you there.